Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. My dad just shared a story about my late Uncle Dale, his lifelong friend and fellow engineer. So in his memory and in spirit of the upcoming holidays, I present for you the tale of nepotism, engineering students, and Idina Menzel. Uncle Dale was a senior engineer at a small firm in the Midwestern USA, an engineering instructor at the local community college. He was also, unofficially, in charge of the office parties. To help offset the costs, he had a small tin box on a table outside of his office with a slot in it so anyone could donate money to the party fund. Everyone knew about it and were happy to donate. A month or so before the company's big Christmas party, Uncle Dale decided to check the box. Lo and behold, it was empty. Uncle Dale knew something was wrong because he had seen several colleagues putting money in the box. This could only mean one thing. Someone was stealing from the party fund. At this moment, Brad, the owner's nephew and a fellow engineer, came around the corner. And something about the way Brad was looking at him made Uncle Dale suspicious. Brad didn't have a good reputation around the office, to say the least. He had a reputation of being pushy, obnoxious, rude, and just plain entitled. Unfortunately, he was not only the owner's beloved nephew, but knew how to skirt the rules so he wouldn't get fired. Uncle Dale decided to set a trap to catch the thief. Using his engineering skills, he set up a hidden rig using a hidden doorbell camera right by the box. He then had a colleague loudly brag about how he contributed $100 to the party fund. Then he waited. He got a notification that the camera was recording and watched Brad open the empty box, scowl in disgust, and throw the box against the wall. Now you'd think this would end with Uncle Dale presenting the video evidence to his boss to get Brad fired, but oh no. As I mentioned in a previous post, if there's one thing engineers love, it's solving problems. And if it's engineering students, they'll make it an experience to remember. Uncle Dale then went to his engineering students. He offered them extra credit to come up with a rigged box that would make noise when opened. The more obnoxious the sound, the higher the bonus. 1 week later, they delivered their product and demonstrated how it worked. Pleased with the results, Uncle Dale awarded them the extra credit as promised. The next day, he set up the rigged box and proclaimed, "Well, isn't this nice?" Someone donated $50 to the party fund. Then he went to his office and waited. The engineering students had rigged the box with one of those inserts from cards that play music when you open them. By popular vote, they had picked Let It Go from the Disney movie Frozen, right around the time the song was beginning to become unpopular. They also managed to ensure that once opened, the box couldn't close unless you pressed a hidden side button releasing the hinge, so the song would continue to play. For extra funsies, they made sure to angle the insert for maximum volume and secured it down with industrial-strength glue. Sure enough, everyone in the office heard Idina Menzel belting the hated song and Brad's frustrated grunts while trying to close the box. One of those attracted by the sound was Brad's uncle. Finally, Brad chucked the box at the wall, managing to put a good-sized dent in it. The uncle then summoned Brad to his office. 15 minutes later, Brad left with a cardboard box and cleared out his desk, along with a note in his file: "Do not rehire. Do not recommend." So his engineering career was over. That Christmas, Uncle Dale had a little video prepared to show at the party. The doorbell camera had caught Brad's attempt to steal from the box, all to the tune of Let It Go. This one might be petty and definitely not as epic as some of the posts I've seen here. And I'm long-winded. Relevant background info first. Anyway, several years ago I was working at one of the big hardware stores in my area. It's a household name and had some upward mobility with decent pay for the area. I never really found a niche there after my first year and a half. I learned quickly though, so they kind of made me a Swiss Army employee. I could work hardware, plumbing, mix paint, make keys, prepare contracts for installs, and knew all the features and flaws of the appliance models we sold. I was happy to do this because I was building a reputation as someone who could do everything. 2 years in, a new program was implemented that I was uniquely qualified to assist with. They created a new position for me. It was marketed as an all-in-one renovation remodel service for interiors. I was to assist the designer with product selection, product information, contracts, and local marketing for this service. Everyone involved was super excited about it. Note, I was still only making $10 an hour in 2015 for this. The problem was that because this was brand new, no one knew how it should work. The designer basically had to figure it out for herself while I tried to catch her up with all of the store and product knowledge I'd accumulated during my unique experience with the company. Issues with the program. It was way too expensive. Product to be used had to come from one of our stores, which was limiting. No one knew about it. It was a rocky start. Coworkers would call me over to talk to customers if they mentioned working on a big project, but that's all we had. No completed jobs to reference or anything provided by corporate to get us running. We made our own stuff. I put together a video advertising the service and got the nod from management to use company card to purchase a TV and media player to roll the video on repeat. We built vignettes in the store to showcase our design ability. I had been picking up a lot from the designer, so it ended up being a partnership in effect. The micromanager. Enter Devin, the assistant manager. He had actually been involved in the project from the beginning and had been pretty supportive and brought good energy at first. But I think he got fed up with issues that we couldn't control. Sloppy contractors refusing to fix things that they messed up, slow design process as customers worked out what they wanted, and people just backing out after taking a bunch of our time when they see the price. We were, on average, charging $3 more for a small bathroom remodel on labor alone. Consulting and design fees were also worked into the final cost. The product was discounted to basically being tax-free, but as I mentioned, options were limited to products the company sold. It was just too expensive to make many sales on the poorer side of town, where almost everyone knows some kind of contractor or tradesman with connections. It wasn't a good market for this program, but we did manage to start hitting and exceeding our numbers. The 7 in the region for the brand new program was not bad. And just when we finally started getting some business and a rhythm around 8 months in, Devin decided that it was not working fast enough for him. Obviously, the designer was to blame since he had no authority over the contractors or setting prices. She didn't know what she was doing, and he was going to make some changes. He honestly didn't do much besides hover, bring bad energy, and make terrible suggestions. He didn't understand the scope of what we had to do to get a customer out the door and happy. He forced us to cut corners and get the sale as quickly as possible without concern for liability, for basically destroying a room in someone's home to remake it, or what was realistic in terms of timelines. Customers felt rushed and got nervous. They backed out. We came to a standstill. We would only have 2 or 3 designs in progress at a time, but suddenly after working our asses off building the program, we had no customers for the first time in 6 months. Obviously, Devin was not subjecting us to his authority hard enough. So he went harder and fired the designer. I lost my patience. Justice or injustice, I don't know. I'm a chill dude, but I'd been working my ass off for this company, making peanuts on the promise that I was working towards something. I endured working for the incompetent managers that got their positions because they started working there at 18 and made it their life. The toxic alpha male I will lead, you will follow BS was too much. So I started bullying him back, making fun of him in a teasing way where he couldn't really react without looking bad or losing control. I did that for a while, and he left me alone to run the program in the interim since I was the only option. The designer and I had become friends, though, so I was still mad about how it went down. I wasn't finished yet, but I didn't know what to do. Eventually, they got another designer, and Devin had me move back to what I had been doing before. Passed over for several promotions that I was more than qualified for. The market had been flooded with long-time employees that were being moved around. Bad luck, but I was done with the place. One day, we were sent an email link to an anonymous manager review survey. The store computers were set up with an always-on and logged-in user profile, so I wrote down the link and verified with a coworker that they weren't unique. In every department I visited that day, I wrote a review for Devin. All different ratings, some good, some bad, but I made the good ones so that they sounded bad, but as if I didn't know it was bad. I did that maybe 10 times. It wasn't character assassination or anything, just opinion-based stuff with some vague examples so no one could figure out it was me. I didn't lie either. I just said what people don't usually say out loud. He would barely look at anyone after that. A couple of weeks later, he resigned his position as assistant manager and took an exterior design position at the other end of the store, as far away from the departments he had been over before. Basically the same thing as what we had done with interiors, but he was in the designer's shoes. I left a couple of months later to work tech support for Accuses, but while I was still in training for that, my friends from the store told me he had gotten fired. Maybe he learned something. He should at least have learned how my designer friend felt. They were both fired at Christmas. Y'all, I didn't think I would post again so soon because I reduced my Karen encounters by approximately 99 by just quitting my retail job. This is a story about the remaining one. So before we start, a little backstory. And also, I'm on mobile and everything is paraphrased because I'm not a native English speaker. I currently study in my first semester, and so far everything is great, except my commute. I live in a small town, and to get to the campus I have to take the train, which happens to drive through two rather large cities until I can get out in a third one. Long story short, I ride the train for about 40 minutes in both directions, and they are used a lot. Now, I have to get up early because obviously the train ride takes long, and I also have to take the bus after that, but I digress. My point is, I have to get up early, and I do not like it. So whenever I can, the long-ass train ride, I try to close my eyes a little more. Theft also is not a big issue in my country, but since there are a lot of people on the train, I've developed a technique which allows me to not look out as much from my backpack and jacket while I close my eyes, and in some occasions even sleep a little more. I have the backpack laying the seat next to me, the zippers facing my side lap, and the jacket is in between. As an additional security measure, I put my arm through the straps of the backpack so one should be able to rip it from me. Now, my ADHD brain asks you to forgive my rather long text for just a small amount of information, but here we go. This morning I, again, was taking the train, holding my backpack and jacket so that no one can take it without me noticing, and I'm even more tired than normal because of my first exam coming up on Friday. Wish me luck, please, so I doze off rather quickly. Now I was in a state which was the closest to actually sleeping I have ever been in public transportation, so there's not much to say except the next thing I remember, my backpack being ripped from me. Because I have my arm in the straps, I obviously get woke up pretty rudely and I start to panic and pull my arm back to me. Now, I'm not that big or strong, but the person trying to get my backpack was, as I soon would find out, even weaker than me. Anyways, as I said, I pulled my arm and my backpack back, and as a result, I sent the person, an elderly female woman who we shall call Karen, falling face first into the seat. By the way, I wear headphones in the train and my music is pretty loud. That might be important for what follows. I, being kind of pissed that I have been woken up, still decided that I should be a good person and check on Karen, as she might have been injured. The moment I decided to take out my headphones, get my body in a more upright position, and carefully remove my arm from my backpack straps, was the moment I nearly wished she had been injured because she started to go off on me. She repeated basically the same stuff, including "You assaulted me. You are in huge trouble, and I'm going to call the police," over and over again for about 2 minutes. The moment she went silent for the first time, I burst out, "What were you thinking, yanking my backpack away from me? Seriously, what reaction were you expecting?" She just continued with her nonsense in order to gather the other passengers on her side, and it actually seemed to work until the woman sitting diagonally from me chimed in and said, "Seriously though, why would you try to steal his backpack and then be surprised when he wouldn't give it to you?" She got red and yelled, "Steal his backpack." The audacity. I wanted to get this kid's attention because nothing was working. Now at this point, I want to mention that in the trains there are 3 kinds of seats. 2 sets of 2 seats facing each other, regular sets of 2 seats and seats that can be folded away to make place for a bike or wheelchair or something similar. The only really comfortable seats were the ones facing each other, as the other ones had either 0 legroom or could get really cramped. The common etiquette is to first populate the seats facing each other. If in all of them are 2 or more, you go on to the seats that are not facing each other, and if a row is used by 1 or more passengers, you go on to the folding seats. Karen didn't get the memo and wanted to squeeze in the 4 seats, which are already populated by me and the woman I mentioned before, and usually I wouldn't mind, but this is a special situation. She woke me up. There were lots of free seats. We have this thing going around called Corona, which is why you shouldn't sit right next to a stranger if other seats are available. Now the lady seemed to calm down and I could finally start to fill in the blanks. She wanted to sit in the seat my backpack was on, but she couldn't get my attention. Instead of looking for another seat or get my attention in a more polite way, like maybe tapping my shoulder, she decided it was a good idea to commit a crime known as attempted robbery, because no judge would care what her motive to pull away my backpack was. She was still ranting. The woman and I were still kind of in shock, and public opinion swung further against her. So in an anticlimactic turn of events, she just decided to exit the train, and that was pretty much it, except I was tired and missed way too much of my lecture. Thanks for bearing with me. I hope you enjoyed the story and I did a halfway decent job at writing it. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Background. I work in a swimming pool part-time on a weekend on top of a full-time job. I enjoy the change in work environments and the benefits that come with it. The pool has a sauna, steam room, and spa as well. The sauna is where it all started. This older gentleman, probably late 50s, early 60s, had started to rock up and use the sauna. Typically, there's no problem with this. But he likes to lie down and have a nap in the sauna and then crack it at staff members who check on him to make sure he's okay. He's been told multiple times that he's not to lie down and have a nap or ignore lifeguards when they ask him to give a sign that he's okay. One day, there was a rotation on pool deck, no problems. This lifeguard was a bit more diligent in his job and saw that head count for the sauna hadn't been updated for about 45 minutes. He sticks his head in the sauna, and a lady in there tells him that the guy lying down hadn't moved for about 30 minutes since she arrived. The lifeguard immediately asked if he was okay. No response. Asked again. No response. Asked again, but louder and basically yelling for the person lying down to respond. No response. Lifeguard then started the Dr. ABCs and went for a response that involves tapping the person on the collarbone, yelling, "Are you okay?" after radioing that we have a possible major. Well, this old man was not happy in the slightest that this lifeguard had. 1. Woken him up from his nap, and 2. Had viciously assaulted him. He went off his nutter and had a massive argument with the manager about what the lifeguard did, and he demanded that the lifeguard be fired for assaulting him in the sauna. The manager told him that it wasn't going to happen, and so the old man stormed off to the change rooms, came out about 15 minutes later dressed, and told staff not to talk to him. After 20 minutes of waiting in the foyer, the cops show up because they got a report that a person was assaulted in the sauna. They didn't even get to finish their sentence before he interrupted, yelling that he was the one who was assaulted, that it was that lifeguard out there who did it, and I demand that you arrest him for assault, because management here won't do anything about it. One of the officers stayed and spoke to the manager and the man who went from yelling to sobbing about how he was viciously assaulted in the sauna, while the other officer went and spoke to the lifeguard who explained what he did. Cops left the facility and told the old man they weren't arresting him or taking details because he was doing his job. The man promptly threw a massive tantrum as the cops left and ended up throwing a bin on the ground before storming out in tears. About 4 weeks later, a journalist from the local newspaper calls the facility because they have a story about the place, and they were wanting to get a comment about it. The journalist said that this older man was assaulted in the sauna by a lifeguard, and that the facility had done nothing about it, and the man was left bedridden for a week. And he ended up in hospital because he had breathing difficulties, and he was covered in bruises, and that he has a possible hairline fracture on his collarbone from the assault, and he is really upset about it all. Management told the journalist what happened, and we sent her an incident report form about the incident, along with a few others showing that the man has been told before not to sleep in the sauna and not to abuse staff who check on him. And if they put out a defamatory story, then lawyers would be involved. Thankfully, the story was killed. Now on to me. I was working over the weekend, and the man came in with some papers that he showed me that he got from lawyers. He then told me that he was suing the lifeguard who assaulted him in the facility for damages, and that I had to hand over to him the full name. He only had the first name, address, phone number, and job of the lifeguard. I told him that I was unable to do that, and that any legal action undertaken against a member of staff has to go through the council's legal team. This is a rough transcript of what he told me. OM, are you finished? Me, yes. OM, good. Now do your job and give me what I have asked from you. Me, I'm not able to give you that information if you want to. OM, are you incapable of doing your job? Me, no sir, I am not. OM, then do your job and give me the details of the man who assaulted me. Me, Sir, I'm not allowed to give out any personal details, OM. This is for legal purposes. You are required to hand over the information of that lifeguard to me. Me. Sir, don't yell and no. I am bound by contract not to give out any personal details of the staff here. Any legal action goes through the council's legal team. OM. I am not suing the council. I am suing that lifeguard who assaulted me. If you do not hand over the information, then I'll have charged and thrown into prison for obstructing the course of justice. Me. Go through the council, Lega. OM. No. Stomping. Give me your name right now. Me. No. OM. You are bound by law, I might add, to hand over the details of that man because it is for legal purposes. Me. Go through the legal T. OM. For the third time, I am not suing the council. I am suing that lifeguard. Now give me his details. By this time, management had heard the yelling and had come down. Amazingly enough, a member of the council's legal team was there who tried to have a talk with the man, but he refused because I am not suing the council. I'm suing that lifeguard. The man left yelling at customers about how the facility is defending a man who assaulted him in the sauna and left him hospitalized. As he left, he yelled that he'll be going on to social media to have this place shut down and that he had recorded the entire incident on a hidden camera. To date, it's been 3 weeks since this incident. Nothing has appeared on social media. In short, entitled Customer Ignored Sauna Rules, claims lifeguard assaulted him when they were doing their job C. Called the cops, tried to do a hit piece of journalism, and yelled at me for not handing over personal details of lifeguard. So I'm a 30-year-old male, and my mom has changed over the last year or two. When she became a part of this new Christian church down the street from us, I thought nothing of it. It was closer, and it was pretty enjoyable. The pastor there was cool, in a way that I thought he could relate. He built computers and ran a game room on the side, and he liked to drive fast. However, my mom took an avid part in the church. So much that she was basically the one to set up, check, and oversee everything organized or ordered or repaired. What was the problem was that now our apartment had become a hub for almost everyone to come into our private lives, as my mom was heavily raised on an open-door type of neighborly attitude. And unfortunately, this has led to her being enveloped in every conversation people would want to have in church groups, including the kind that come of controversial. Over a couple of years, she'd changed a lot of her private habits, including what she watched. Sometimes took food advice from people at the church, and most importantly, began to ask more political questions, while also stating more political idealism around to me. I don't know if she always believed these things, as I keep my hobbies separate from her, and she's always respected that. Most of the time, it's because either it opens up to a discussion about how those activates won't get you anywhere, or you should try reading your Bible more. That will help get you through more than those video games. I play one video game at the most, and even them I've stopped playing it recently. However, one new hobby I've broken into is Dungeons and Dragons. A couple of years ago, I ran into a convention room holding a Dawn event, and I've loved it ever since. I started looking around where I live and found a trading card store that has D&D sessions on a weekly basis. Joining it, I finally got the social connection I was lacking for a long time. Being able to interact with people my age and enjoy the same games, anime, and whatnot was a breath of fresh air I never knew I needed. Not to mention, I was able to express creativity that was sorely lacking. It got to the point where I found the passion to try and start my own story YouTube channel. My mom was supportive of it, finally happy that I was making friends and going out. However, as her idealism started to become more public to me, I was getting concerned that she would become the kind of religious person with some toxic views. This first became noticeable to me when she asked about my opinion about teaching gender pronouns to kids. I've never heard her ask about things like this, and we always kind of keep our personal interest to each other unless one of us asks. Then it stated to get to the point where she basically volunteered me to work on the media of my church. I usually came along to church 3 times a month anyway, so I wasn't really upset. Besides, it opened up my love for photography again. However, just 2 days ago, I was printing out something for my D&D game. It was basically some guide notes for a One Piece themed D&D. And I forgot to get it off the printer, and my mom ended up seeing it. Now, I'm sure at this point, some of you know about the stigma Christians have had with Dungeons and Dragons, including a certain movie trying to demonize it. But I never believed my mom would believe that. especially since she used to play Mortal Kombat with me and my brother and still loves action movies like Taken or Jason Bourne. However, I did not trust some of the church people, especially a certain pair, so I gave her the basic explanation of what we were doing. A tabletop role-playing game. I had hoped that this would satisfy her curiosity, and also if she told anyone at the church, they wouldn't be too nosy about it. But sadly, it would not last as she sees the word devil from devil fruits and basically goes on a tangent that I'm inviting evil and negative things into my soul. I tried to explain it to her that this was just a game, that none of it is actually bringing in evil, and the part that I printed out was actually talking about hockey, and how to gain techniques in using it. Funnily enough, hockey is training one's will and spirit, and I thought she would see interest in that. But unfortunately, that only made it worse, as they thought that I was not getting enough Bible reading into me that I needed to rely on that, which I told her wasn't true. Seeing all the stigma that I read coming to life, I just shut her out, not wanting what has actually happened to others in this to happen to me. I'd hoped that she would remember that this has been healthy for me because it allowed me to socialize, and it was constructive. Not to mention, she still watches action movies with shooting in it, so I don't know where she thinks I'm letting in evil. Today, however, she demands that I come with her to Bible study night to night, and she wants me to bring the papers with me. I knew where this was going, and it threw me off all day. I knew what her plan was, to show this to the church group and find people to back her up and try to talk me down like I was on drugs. But I steeled myself and told myself that if she actually did that, that I would just walk out. I mean, what was she gonna do? Stop me. But it was even worse. When we arrived, she told me to go to the youth study group. My mind, still hoping that she wasn't going to do this to me, thought she was talking about young adults. But no. It was kids. And I mean 8-year-olds to 16-year-olds. The only adult, other than the study leader who was older than me, was her 21-year-old son. Something inside me snapped. I've dealt with a lot of frustrating things my mom has done, but this was truly the most disrespect I've ever felt in my life from her. She couldn't even give me the courtesy to have me sit with the old people and do this. No, it had to be kids. I stormed out, holding in my anger, and almost felt compelled to storm into the chapel and yell at her. Instead, I just went home, where I am typing this out right now while she's probably wondering where I am. I had a long sob about this after complaining about this to my sister, and I'm seriously thinking about moving out to her if my mom comes home and tries to rip into me about leaving. I don't know what will happen, but I have no intention of being treated like this and just taking it. Hi, everyone. I, 25 female, have read through a ton of similar posts on here but wanted to write my own as I feel like I'm going crazy and need some external opinions. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my dad has always done his best to be in my life. My older brother and I used to love spending the day with him every Saturday. At some point, when I was around 12 years old, my older brother stopped coming. My mom and dad had some bad custody child support fights early on, and my older brother sided with my mom. I tried to stay neutral to avoid hurting anyone. From there until college, I would visit my dad alone. He wasn't too pushy about texts or calls, but would always cross into overprotective. He would text me almost daily to check in, and on the few instances I forgot to answer. Out at a friend's fell asleep early, was sick. He'd text my mom and demand to know that I was okay. A few times, my mom was asleep as well and didn't answer, and he called the police to my mom's house in the middle of the night. Our relationship started to get really bad right before college, and we were fighting all the time, but he always attributed it to me being a hormonal teenager. I think it was because I was struggling for more independence. My first year of college, he lost his high-paying job and all his income. He had to move in with his mom, my grandma, to a different state where they still live together now. She is immunocompromised and he takes care of her, so they both have essentially not left the house since COVID. He is set on looking for virtual work and has been doing nothing but studying daily, sleeping weird hours, and applying for jobs for the last 5 years. Not even exaggerating, they don't do much else. I haven't seen either of them in 5 years, and he says he isn't ready for me to visit because he is ashamed of the situation. Both of these calls end up going way over an hour, and he guilts me when I try to wrap up even though I have things to do around the house, fitness classes, dinner to make, etc. During this call, I am not allowed to walk, clean, cook, be outside, or do anything besides sit and listen. If he hears any noise in the background, he gets angry. When I try to push back on this, he says that I probably waste time on 100 other things and can set aside 2 hours or more a week to speak. We don't have much to talk about as I don't like to tell him about my life. He likes to debate or turn everything I mention to him into a negative or life lesson. I have been in an amazing relationship for almost a year that I haven't had the energy to tell him about because I know he is going to find a million things wrong with it. He has a different religion, which is apparently the worst thing in the world, even though I'm not religious and neither are my boyfriend or dad. We talk about my job occasionally, but I'm not interested in climbing the corporate ladder or learning the games he wants me to play. He doesn't have anything happening in his life either, as all he does is study for open roles he finds. He usually spends our phone call talking about the mistakes he's made in life and about how I should avoid them, current events and politics and things going on in the career world. I'm not really interested in the things he talks about and don't want to follow in his footsteps, so I mostly just stare at the wall, listen for 1.5 hours, and try to sound interested. In addition to these calls, he also wants me to text him within 15 minutes of arriving to work, 2 days a week, different from the above days, and text him when I'm home from work before 6 months. If I'm running late, I have to call him and let him know. For reference, my commute is a safe and easy 20-minute ride. I also have to answer his daily nighttime check, in text asking me how things are going, if I have any questions, if I'm home, etc. Within 30 minutes, I am not on my phone often and missed responding on time to a few of them, which led to some really bad fights. We eventually settled on me texting him myself every night when I was home and not planning to leave. Lastly, he wants me to let him know if I go out on the weekend and text him when I'm home, which I think is fair. One important thing to note is that when I first moved into my own place a couple years ago to be near work, he had very strict rules about where I had to live. Doorman building with cameras, safe part of the city, etc. All reasonable but expensive. I was doing well for myself, but couldn't afford those amenity buildings on my own. Think nice where you can find affordable apartments in okay areas on a decent entry-level salary, but not the amenity buildings in very nice areas. My dad agreed to cover the rest and did so for about a year and a half. A few months ago, right after I resigned for another year, he told me he ran out of money. I've been putting all the extra on my credit card, which he promises to pay back once he gets a job. I don't know when that will be, and of course will not be resigning unless things turn around, but I'm kind of stuck in this situation. I wish I could say that this is the only reason I want to keep the relationship with him. Money is not worth a bad mental state. I can't say that it doesn't make me anxious, but I could end our relationship and walk away with a few thousand in debt. The truth is that I feel bad for him, and he makes me feel guilty if I don't put him first. My parents are European, and he says it's a very American mentality to not put your family first. That I should want to call him often and should feel bad if I know he is worrying about me. That if I can text him to let him know that I'm okay, that I should. I've tried to ask that we cut back on communication and how much he relies on my responses, but he calls me selfish. For reference, I have an excellent relationship with my mom and her side of the family. I call her to chat almost daily, and we talk about all the things in her life and in mine. She knows and has met my boyfriend, and she has my location so she always knows when I'm safe. She doesn't force anything on me and doesn't turn everything negative or into a lesson, so I love telling her about my life and keeping her updated. When I try to explain this to my dad, he basically insinuates that if my mom isn't checking in on me regularly, she doesn't care. Even as I'm typing this, I can see that it's not healthy, or is it? I feel like I can't get an objective grasp on this. He says he is much better than most dads. Is this true? Is this a cultural thing? I just don't know what to do. I don't want to cut him off or end the relationship because he doesn't have anything else. No other close friends or family besides his mom. I love him a lot. The financial tie doesn't help. It's easy to suggest setting a hard boundary, but he always follows with, so you're okay with knowing that I'm stressing out and there's something you can do to fix it, but you won't. Do I just say yes? I feel like I can't do this forever. I hate being attached to my phone and constantly anxious. I am reaching my breaking point. I really don't know what to do. Does anyone have a couple words of advice or confirmation, either in support of my side or of my dad's side? Thank you in advance and sorry for the length. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.